Let's talk about something we can actually fix. The App Store on iOS.
We can fix that?
No.
No, okay.
Was it Lauren Good? Somebody wrote a good article on The Verge about this issue, which is we've talked about before, and I know you guys know developers who face this problem. She quoted two developers who did Sketch, which is a $99 Mac app, 3D design Mac app. They said, we're never going to do an iPad Pro version because the store doesn't let us do demos. Charging $99 for an app on the App Store is tough enough, but people can't try before they buy. They're not going to do it. And what about the upgrade issue? You know, there's no way to charge people for an upgrade. You either upgrade them for free or make a whole new version of the program, you know, that they have to buy.
OmniGraffle is like OmniGraffle 2.
Is this a real problem?
It is and it isn't. It is a real problem in that for people who come from a traditional Mac background, they expect things to be like demos and like upgrades. But they have a way bigger problem than I think than anyone is really documenting. And that is, no one's ever seen a market like this before. There's 1.5 million apps in the store. That was never the case on the Mac. It probably wasn't the case on Windows, where they were that easily available to that many people. And people say, oh, they don't keep up the value of the apps. Apps race to the bottom. But when you have venture capitalists involved, they don't have to charge for the apps. They're not making their money off the app up front. So you're going to have competitors who charge nothing for the app. You're going to have an incredible amount of competition. And yes, upgrades would be nice. And yes, demos would be nice if you're dealing with people who are traditionally used to software. But we have a whole generation of people who are just used to everything being free, and they don't put any value in software.
That is a problem.
And Apple could pull all sorts of levers, and developers really want them to. But at this point, I don't know if that's going to help. And we face this as content creators too. And we saw the music industry talking about this streaming. There is a massive disconnect between value propositions. And when you get to 1.5 million apps, even if your app is terrific, people may not care. And that's a really hard thing for developers to hear, that I put all this time and effort and I made this, what I consider to be this really great app, and nobody's buying it. And I could blame lack of trials and I could blame lack of upgrades. But in the end, there's just so much noise out there. And it's really hard. It's become like the movie or music industry, where you have to get a breakout hit. You have to do the kind of marketing that Adele's people are doing. And then you have to put all the wood behind that arrow. Yeah, and I don't think it's a simple fix.
And I think there's a couple. Go ahead. Andy.
Apple is putting some bricks in the developer's backpack that Apple does not have to put in there. One is lack of demos. The other is lack of paid upgrades. Another is lack of access to information about customers, even voluntarily. There are just so many roadblocks that are making the App Store a non-ideal proposition for developers. And we can name a bunch of developers who have decided to, on the Mac app, at least on the Mac app side, who've decided that it's just not worth it for us. We have a good enough relationship directly with our customers that the extra hassles that Apple inflicts upon us to be part of the App Store just isn't paying off for us. And users aren't going to be trained to start to pay money for apps until we start to see a little more variety here. I think that I think that your point is well taken. That it's hard to convince people who have never used an iPhone without expecting to spend more than $2.99 on an app to suddenly teach them that, look, this is valuable software that's not going to be made and it's not going to be upgraded unless you start paying actual, like, real make-a-living sort of money off of it. But we're not going to even start the process unless we take the handcuffs off developers and let them do what they want to do. Well, I think all I'll say is that the Procreate app for iPad, it's an amazing app, and it shocks me that it costs, I think, $5.99.
Yeah, what a deal!
And I really just wish. I know that I'm an outlier. I know that you can't really build a business on people like me, but I really wish there were, like we were seeing on so many other apps, a button that I can push to simply say, "Look, just let me give you more money than this," because now that I've been using it for a week. Excuse me.
Like Omni, they charge real money for their apps.
They charge real money for an app. Other developers will let you do like a sort of a Patreon sort of thing where touch this button and basically pledge a certain amount of money per month that we will automatically get out of you for continuing to use the app. I have faith in humanity, but I'm not sure that people are going to be able to come through to make that a windfall. But I'd like more developers to try to do that. I would like to be able to. I would like to give more money to developers who make the apps that I rely on, because I want them to make a good living, and also selfishly, I want them to continue to support and upgrade this app.
Well, I think that a lot of the app developers that are making money, I think, are thinking about things in two ways. One is obviously in-app purchases, and the second is some kind of subscription. I mean, a lot of us And my company got hooked on Slack because it was free, and they started downloading it. And now I'm paying. I don't know how much I pay per month for that.
Yeah, but you're hooked.
But I mean, but my company runs 5,000 to 10,000 messages a week, through it. So it's
worth it.
And so, but it built up from a free thing that then I had to pay to keep doing whatever they wanted to do. And so I think that model has been successful. I think also in-app purchases I think that there is and I think a lot of developers aren't doing this. If you think you're going to build something big, and I think that Apple could do this, for instance, with Final Cut, or anybody else who's building a larger thing, is think of your app as a platform. So if you're not building a small app and you're building a big app, think of your as a platform and make sure that you have a way for people to build things into it that are third party, that Apple might get a bit, you might get a bit. But if you've got 1 million users, there's a lot of other people that might want to, or even if you're building extra tools, I don't think you necessarily have to give the entire. I think you have to give something that's useful enough for free, or for a little, and then that people can use every day and get used to it. And then there's being able to add things on, because I'm quite happy paying for extra brushes, or whatever. Once I'm in an app and think that it's useful. So because I know I got some art app for the iPad Pro. It was like $1.99, and then all the brushes were $6 or something like that.
Paper used to be like that, and they switched to their hardware supported model. Now Apple makes their own pencil. I mean, it is really tough. And there's all sorts of arguments pro and con. Like some people were saying time trials would be great. I could download this app and see if I really like it. But then someone's like, well, let's say you download this app and you put a bunch of data in it, and then your time expires. How do we get that data out for you? And none of the stuff is simple. And I don't think Apple's being mean about this stuff. I think that they have a big philosophical divide about this, the way they do about many things, where some people believe that in order for there to be a future, especially on the Mac App Store, you have to provide these things. Now other people are like, no, that makes it not simple. We want people to download an app and just use it. I don't have to worry about, is my data going to time out? Am I going to have to pay for an upgrade? What happens if I don't want the upgrade? And I think sometimes when your desire to be simple, and it's like those apps that don't have preferences because they want to be simple, and then all the workarounds they put in place not to have preferences becomes way more complicated. I think that's what we're seeing with the App Store now, is in this attempt to have a simple model, you have people making second versions of the app. And then what happens if Ken Case from Omni Group was trying to figure out a name for the old version of Omni Group for people who didn't want to upgrade to the new version. And Tapbots is having to do all this stuff to retrofit an old version of Tweetbot. People didn't want to have to buy the new version. And I don't know what the solution is. Like, everyone says I want this or that, and none of that looks like it's going to be workable either. But there's obviously a problem because people aren't getting value for software, and if they don't, they're going to stop making it, and then we all lose out.